Talk about who Kovini was in primary school. Do you remember what you wanted to be as a little girl in primary school?
I wanted to actually be a pilot.
A pilot. Okay. What inspired that? You wanted to touch the sky.
And I think for me, it was just such an incredible environment to be in, to be around such intelligent people, global leaders, which is a global company.
Yeah.
So it was a multinational that I worked for. And we would often being wherever you are in the world, the network was so powerful that you would just pick up the phone and speak to someone in Spain or get advice from someone in New York. That was the kind of culture that company embodied. So it was incredible. I felt like even though I didn't really travel too much during that time, I felt like I traveled the world.
Just by being in that company.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I like what you're saying in terms of having discussions. And I think also with me starting the podcast, there are certain things that I've discovered are quite tricky to talk about. How do you navigate that? Because there's always that fear of, they call it career limiting moves, right? Is that a real thing for you? How do you navigate it? And how do you have these difficult conversations with people? And I think that's why I think your platform is very important by providing that example. And I think that's why we started 9 to Life as well, because...
Yeah, tell me more about 9 to Life.
Okay. As the interview switches to me.
Things we can argue about, there's certain things we can not agree on, like pizza toppings. Then we can not agree, that's all right.
Are you a pineapple person?
No. But
I am, so we can argue about that.
Right, we can talk about, arguing, maybe you don't like my jacket or, whatever the case is. But
preference things. Yeah.
But I think there are certain things in life that are not up for debate.
Yeah.
And are not
universal truth.
Absolutely, universal truth.
It's 9 to Life. It's 9 to Life. It's 9 to Life. It's 9 to Life.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another installment of the 9 to Life podcast, your career and life journey podcast, where we interview the interesting people doing the things you'd like to do but didn't know that you could. My name is Lesego Muela. I'll be your host. And today I have Miss Kovini Moodley, who is a chartered accountant, firstly, but she's a risk. Maybe you should.
Yeah.
I think you say it more.
So I am a chartered accountant, indeed.
Yeah.
I am also a risk and audit specialist for a large JSE company. And I'm the founder of Boss Babes of South Africa. So yeah, I'm a woman that's wearing many different hats at this point. Grateful and glad for all of my journeys and all of my life experience.
We're going to get into those life experiences because they shape the people that we turn out as, right? Whenever you show up as the boss babe or as the risk official, all of that is shaped by whoever you were coming up, right? So we usually start our episodes with an origin story to try and understand who Kovini is, where she was from. So maybe take us through that.
So I grew up in a little town called Shallcross. Shallcross, yeah. I'm not surprised because it's south of Durban. It's a really small town.
Is it by Amanzimtoti and them?
No, closer to Pinetown and between Pinetown and sort of Chatsworth. Often people describe it as if you blink, you could miss it. So it's a very small town beginnings, humble beginnings. And I think the thing that I've always been very proud of is that the community that I grew up in was very nurturing, was full of love. My neighbors, everyone, in a small town, everyone grows up a child. You're not just your parents.
Yeah, you are a child of the community.
You are a child of the community, of the village. And I think that is, what I'm very proud of today. Despite the success, despite everything I've done, I think it's very important to remember where we've come from and the journey that we've walked.
Absolutely. Talk about who Kovini was in primary school. Do you remember what you wanted to be as a little girl in primary school?
I wanted to actually be a pilot.
A pilot. Okay. What inspired that? You wanted to touch the sky?
To watch a lot of movies. I used to watch a lot of movies, and I was obsessed with like being up in the sky and kind of, deciding where I want to go for the day. And yeah, I guess after high school, I became a little bit more realistic in terms of what do I actually love, as opposed to what movies are telling me is a cool thing to be doing.
Yes. And you knew in high school that you wanted to be in the accounting space?
Yeah, in high school, I was pretty sure that I wanted to be a CA because I was surrounded by cousins that had just newly qualified, a few people in the community that had newly qualified. And I said, no, this is something that I want to do.
You want to do, ne? Yeah. Look, Saika has done a great job in terms of advertising the profession. I think a lot of us, when we think about, careers, there's a few that are more prestigious than the chartered accountant of South Africa. So I don't blame you. Okay. And then where did you go to tertiary?
So I went to UKZN.
Okay, so you still kept it.
Absolutely.
local.
I was in Durban, UKZN. I did my articles at Deloitte in Durban. It was an incredible experience. What a fantastic training ground. And thereafter I moved up to Johannesburg.
Oh, wow. What? And then talk about when you were doing your degree, right? Did you know that you wanted to go to Deloitte? Did you know what the next steps were? And how did you make that decision to land up in, first of all, Deloitte and also still in KZN? Why didn't you make the decision to come up to Joburg then for your articles?
I think growing up in a small town shapes you.
Were you afraid?
I was afraid. I was afraid to drive in Johannesburg. That was my main fear. Coming from a small town, it's a very different driving experience to start with. So I was happy to just spend more time living with my parents, which is the way it was, with my twin sisters. And
Did you say twin sister?
I have twin sisters, yeah.
As in, you are a twin within the
No,
sisterhood?
I'm not a twin. They are twins, and they're my sisters. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So that was really our, when you grow up in a close-knit family where there's a lot of love, you want to stay. You want to stay for as long as you possibly can. Yeah.
Until you made the difficult decision to go out.
Well, I was offered a job here in Johannesburg. It was with Accenture South Africa. Incredible experience.
Wait, this is immediately after your articles. You went into Accenture. Talk about that.
Into management consulting. I think management consulting, you learn a lot of life skills. You learn how to hit the ground running. You learn how to come up with solutions because that's all you're doing the whole day is you're fixing problems for businesses. And I think for me, it was just such an incredible environment to be in, to be around such intelligent people, global leaders, because Accenture is a global company. So it was a multinational that I worked for. And we would often being wherever you are in the world, the network was so powerful that you would just pick up the phone and speak to someone in Spain or get advice from someone in New York. That was the kind of culture that company embodied. So it was incredible. I felt like even though I didn't really travel too much during that time, I felt like I traveled the world.
Just by being in that company.
Absolutely.
Management consulting is an interesting one for us because it's like a fascinating thing where it's like a myth. People don't really know what it's about. I think people that have seen the show, is it House of Cards? Have you seen it? They have an idea or they think that's what
it's a bad idea. That's not it.
How close is it? It's not accurate.
Look, there are parts of it.
Okay.
But I think for me, what is important is that not everyone is aligned to that kind of career path. A lot of people love structure.
Yes.
It's not that I don't.
Okay.
It's just that I enjoy a very dynamic work environment.
Okay.
So after I do something, I'd like to do something else. I'd like to meet new people. I'd like to expand my horizons. And it gave me that.
Yes.
It was amazing at giving me tons of experience. Within a 4-year period, I got to work for around 25 JSE listed companies during my 4-year period.
4 years.
Yeah. It was
25. That's an average of what, 6 companies a year?
Absolutely.
One company every 2 months?
And I think that, it was really phenomenal companies.
Yeah.
And you go into those companies and you just get such a good understanding of culture, different types of culture.
Because now you're moving around.
You're moving around and you're doing different types of work. You're learning about strategy. You're learning about cutting costs. You're learning about centers of excellence implementation. So you're learning a lot of things in a short space of time. And I think the kind of mind growth set that I had and the actual reward and recognition that I gained at Accenture was, it really set me apart.
So it was even more exposed because, articles is also supposed to do that for you, right? For CA articles. So it was like an evolution of like your articles journey then. The 4 years.
Absolutely. I was used to being a nomad. One company, next company, roll off, next company. And I loved it. I really loved it. Yeah. But I think it's also the type of person you are, because a lot of my friends ventured into it. And after a few months, they said, no, this is really it's not for me. And that's okay. That's all right.
I think it's absolutely great for you to know, first of all, who you are and what works for you, right? Sometimes it takes a bit of time for you to sort of go through the process of discovery, for you to sort of understand where you fit in this and which sort of work setup you prefer, right?
Absolutely. And only you can do that for yourself. I always say that, like, no one can come and tell you this is what you're meant to be doing. You've got to go on this sort of soul searching journey and find what it is. Yeah. What is the type of work that, set your soul on fire?
Yeah. A lot of guests come on the podcast and they say that as well. And a lot of them give the advice to say, the sooner you can discover that for yourself, the better. But I think everyone struggles in terms of how do you achieve that, or how do you teach that to people that are young, that arguably need it the most, right? Because they make these life decisions so early. Like, for instance, you wanted to be a CA when you were in high school. You chose the path and it happened to work out for you. But there are people that want to be a CA, choose the path, and discover in the middle that, this was actually not for me, which means they might have some years that they feel like have redirected them from whatever their purpose was, and they would have been better placed finding that purpose earlier on. How do you advise someone to sort of find that very early? What should they do?
I think it's important to block out the noise of the world, right? Because often the noise of the world impacts what we think we need to become. Yeah. And I think, choosing a career path, finding the right employer, whatever it may be, is something that you need to really focus on who you are as a person. When you know your own values and your own morals, it becomes a little bit easier. And you understand where your strengths. I think a lot of people have forgotten about their strengths and just think, I want to be a CA, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. Because those are, the kind of professions that, we want to chase. So I think as much as we want to, and that's great to have ambition, also look at your strengths and say, what am I good at? Am I good at maths? Then, I can go accounting, I can go medicine. I'm not so good at maths. Let me look at other options, I think
that's how I chose my degree, by the way. In fact, I still say this. I don't feel like it was 100% my choice, but that's not a regret, right? When we were doing the whole aptitude test in your mid-high school, yes, all of that. They said, I've always been good with maths and numbers, right? They said, oh, you're good at maths. You should be an accountant. And that's how I basically chose my career, right? And one of the guests spoke about the importance of mentorship, or people that you can look at that can sort of show you the blind spots. Because you might, I hear what you're saying in terms of discovering your strengths, but at a young age, you might have some certain blind spots that you just inherently are not able to see. It's always helpful, I think, and this is what a lot of people have said, to have people that can show you those blind spots, right? Talk about that a bit.
Yeah, actually, on that point, I have something exciting to share. I have recently decided to be a mentor and a career coach. So that's kind of where I want to focus my spare time.
Do you even have any?
Yeah, I need to make the time. I've just felt really called from having my platform and having a lot of people reaching out to me to say, can you mentor me? Can you be my coach? And at first I just brushed it away. But why? I think I just never saw myself as a coach. Yeah. But now, as I've gotten to know myself more, I realize that I do that very naturally. Okay. I've been doing it on my platform naturally for a while. I just didn't realize it. And I think that for me is where I want to say the next almost chapter of my life is heading towards, giving back in a more meaningful way so that women can build their careers. Women of color can stand up for themselves and own their space and own their power.
I think while we are there, just talk about your platform a bit and let's get into it. When you started it, how you started it, what you're hoping to achieve with it.
I started it as we were heading into COVID-19, so in March of 2020.
Oh, 2020.
Yeah.
Jeez, what a time to start. Okay.
Literally, I knew that I wasn't going to be going for any events. There was going to be no social life. So I thought, let me use my voice digitally.
Yeah.
I have a lot to say, like I said.
Yep.
So I want to use my voice for good. So that's kind of what I started with. And it started as a hobby. I didn't expect it to grow to the kind of scope and depth that it is today. It really started with me using my voice, sharing my lived experiences. And little did I know that people would resonate with my story of growing up in a small town and having a dream of becoming a CA. And that's really how I want to say my brand sort of got put out there, and there were media interviews and that sort of thing that followed. But for me, I think it was just as a woman of color, there are many challenges that we face. And I don't think everyone is ready to speak about it as openly as we should, right? And that's the reason why I created this platform. So women of color can be heard, can be seen, can have some kind of glimmer of hope, some kind of voice. A seat at the table these days is sometimes just a seat at the table.
Yeah, just to tick a box.
Tick a box.
Yeah.
And I think I wanted to expand on that and say a seat at the table at Boss Babes of South Africa is where you have that voice, where you get to lend your skill, where you get to, share your thoughts. And I think one of the biggest things that I brought to the platform that I attribute my success to is sharing my own lived experiences. Unfortunately, I can't hide away from what has happened to me. I've got to own it. I've got to own the story. I've got to own the struggle. And I believe that in understanding some of the challenges that women and women of color face, it's important to, focus on how do we move past that. I think as South Africa, we have come a long way, but I believe we still have many huge strides to get through before we get to where we need to be.
Look, your organization is doing some really, really important work, right? And it resonates with me, or I relate to it, because I think there's certain sort of similarities that we have with my platform as well. Because I think for me as well, when we started the podcast, it was about, first of all, providing the information, right? And also providing the example. And also just highlighting to people that the personal stories of the people that we bring onto the podcast are not too dissimilar in terms of our upbringing. They're not too dissimilar from yours, right? You might think these people maybe grew up with a silver spoon, for instance, right? We thought you came from this rich family, so that's why things are working out for you.
Not at all.
Right? But now we know Kovini grew up in a small town somewhere in
Shellcraft.
You have really forgotten.
You see? Yeah. Yeah.
Somewhere near Pine Town.
Yeah.
That's how it, So I think I like your platform. You said it's called Boss
Babes of South Africa.
Boss Babes of South Africa. Okay. Do you work with certain people? Who else do you work with on your platform?
We've been bringing on a lot of mental health activists, a lot of labor lawyers, because I believe that is where knowledge is power.
Yes.
So it's important to know, in the spaces that we find ourselves, and it's important to know your rights, to understand where you fit in, and to also play by the rules. So I think it's important that, we take care of our mental health, which is why I bring on a lot of life coaches and partner with life coaches as well. And then we were bringing on a few, we brought on a psychiatrist, a psychologist, because I believe in talking about things that matter. So I thought it was important to have these kind of SMEs lend their voice to the platform, and that is empowerment for me. I think empowerment means different things for different people.
Yes.
But for me, that is true empowerment when you walk away with knowledge that could possibly change your life.
I like what you're saying in terms of having discussions. And I think also with me starting the podcast, there are certain things that I've discovered are quite tricky to talk about. How do you navigate that? Because there's always that fear of, they call it career limiting moves, right? Is that a real thing for you? How do you navigate it? And how do you have these difficult conversations with people?
I think if you speak your truth and you speak from integrity and it's career limiting, then you're not in the right space.
You're not in the right
You're not in the right space. You're probably in the right career, but you're not in the right environment that is aligning with your values and truth and integrity.
Yes.
So we should always be able to speak our truth. We should always own our lived experiences. Yeah, there shouldn't be a reason why you wouldn't. Yeah.
So when you find yourself in that thing, just do like a little temperature check and see. So just like hoist something and see how it's received. If it's not received how you expected or would like for it to be received, find your way out.
And I'm not saying find your way out immediately.
Okay.
But make more intelligent choices. Make choices that are going to align with your future and not your past.
Yeah. Okay, that's great advice. It's not easy always to make that career move, especially in a country such as South Africa with our unemployment and underemployment numbers, right? You might wish with all your heart and all your might to exit this space, this toxic or this space that doesn't align with your values. You might want for that to happen, but the reality is that, it's tough. It'll take time. And you are saying just be intentional about it.
Be intentional, but also I think that's where therapy helps, because they're going to give you coping mechanisms. I will never advocate for anyone to just drop their job. Jobs are very hard to come by at the moment. If you have one, you're listening to this, you're in a terrible environment, just hold on to it, guys. Just hold on. There's power in having an income. That's what I can say. But at the same time, there's also power in knowing that you deserve better. And there's power in taking intentional steps to get to where you need to get to. I would never advocate for anyone if they're upset to go and drop their job. That's not great advice. And I know a lot of coaches give that advice, but in this economy, having a job is just something to be very grateful
for. It's a blessing, né? Sure. Okay. I want us to get into more your career, right? Because I want us to talk more about your personal experiences. Talk about your articles journey. You said you went to Deloitte. You did your articles at Deloitte.
It was a dream to be at Deloitte when we were at university. Deloitte was the place to be.
Okay. So you chose Deloitte out of the four. You chose Deloitte. You didn't want the other. We're not going to name them. The other big four.
I manifested Deloitte.
Okay,
So it was on my vision board, guys, because that was the place to be. And I think I was just bent on being there, and a lot of my friends were going there, so I wanted to be with them as well. But I think at that point, Deloitte just had an incredible reputation. It still does. It still is a market leader. So I think that was just such a great grounding. Got to work for tons of JSE listed companies, work with incredible managers and leaders. And I think it just shaped me. I was young when I started that. I was 21 when I started.
Okay. So you finished your degree at honors in record time?
Yeah, 22. I was 22 when I started at Deloitte.
First year. So you were more excited than nervous, right? You knew exactly, because you had friends and family that were there. You knew exactly what to expect.
I knew what to expect, but I think you go into an environment and you've got to also find your own feet. You've got to find a way to make it work for you. And it was very high paced, but at the same time, I like that. I like that drive and that kind of energy that it
it's clear. You went into management consulting afterwards.
So and then I went to management consulting. I was like, I need to explore this a little bit more. I've always had an idea that I would be a consultant because ever since I was small, it was about fixing stuff.
Okay.
I would love coming up with solutions.
Yeah.
Often my friends would, get into a state of crying or whatever the case is when we were still young. And I used to look at them and think, you're crying, but what's that going to do for you?
What's the next step?
How do we move this crying along to get to a solution? Yeah. So I think I've always been very mature in terms of coming up with a solution, just brainstorming. If this doesn't work, I'll do this. If this doesn't work, I'll do that. And I think that's really what management consulting revealed my love for, being in a dynamic environment where things are constantly changing, being in a global company and just working with some of the most amazing people that I'm still in touch with till today.
That's beautiful. I had a chat with a lady from Accenture a couple of months ago, I think around last year this time. And she revealed something I found so fascinating. In Accenture, there are two ways of upward mobility, right? You can either go the manager route, where you develop your management skills, you manage a team, then you go on to be like, I forgot what the titles are. But there's also this second uncommon route where you say, I want to be an individual contributor. I don't really see myself. Yes, a specialist. I don't really see myself managing people. That's not the type of personality that aligns with what. And unfortunately, in the past, if you wanted to move up in your career, you had the next step was always management, right? If you wanted to be a specialist, you'd hit a ceiling very quickly. And Accenture offers that route.
Mhm.
Did you experience that in your time? And which
Not in
route?
my time.
Not in your
not
time,
in my
no?
time.
Okay.
I was very much
Might
part
be
of
a new
part
thing,
of a
yeah.
team, but I think
Yeah.
that's a brilliant way to
It's
go.
brilliant. It was so fascinating.
Yeah, I think every human being is so different that we need to accommodate. Your career can't come to a halt because, you know, you're not the best people person.
Yes. And you don't even want to be. That's
it.
the
A lot of people
thing,
don't
right?
want to be.
They don't want to be.
Yeah.
They say, no, I'm fine being an engineer. I don't want to.
I want to work in my corner.
I don't want to manage anyone.
Yeah.
I just want to grow in my career and still be a specialist. Yeah, I found that so fascinating.
Fascinating.
Right?
It must be something new, but you know, I'm not surprised with Accenture. They're always following leading practice and best practice.
Yes, you did say they have a best practice center. What did you call it? Best practice center or best something?
They used to send us overseas. They used to send us for like a university. It used to be the Accenture University in Chicago.
Wait, Accenture has a university?
Well, they did at that time.
Oh,
we would go there,
okay.
we would get trained and we would come back with a wealth of knowledge. So it really is, it was a fantastic experience. I think especially if you're younger, you love it. You love it if you want to travel and you want to see the world and you want to work at the same time.
Absolutely. They call management consulting and CA actually the fast track sort of article. So you took both of them. Did you know that you wanted to end up in corporate eventually? Or were you just saying, I don't really know where I want to go. Let me just
I knew I wanted to be in corporate.
Okay, ultimately.
Yeah, I'm in corporate. But I think what's important is to also find that alignment.
Okay.
And I'm not someone that believes that, you know, where you are is where you'll stay. I'm someone that's very open-minded in terms of deciding as human beings, we evolve. And as we evolve, we need to, you know, find ourselves in evolution as well. So I think it's very important going into 2024, given my own lived experiences this year. Yeah.
And then when you exited Accenture, what role did you go into then?
So then I moved into a medical aid space.
Okay.
And risk and audit.
Yeah. Okay.
So
you found your way back into audit now.
I am a risk and audit specialist. I love those two, and strategy. I'm a strategist by profession. So yeah, I really love coming up with ideas, brainstorming, whiteboards. That's my zone.
Okay. Okay. You just happen to do that within the risk and audit space. So you don't walk around with a red pen and...
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah, it's very strategic in terms of the roles that I've taken so far.
Yeah.
It's really set me up to be a strategist.
Okay. But now your organization has a clue, I think, of what you ultimately want to be, and that's the path, right? Do you see yourself as a CEO one day, opening your own company perhaps? Do you have those ambitions? What's your thinking there?
I definitely want to explore corporate a bit more. So I mean, that's where I started. It was a fantastic ground. So I do want to explore corporate a little bit more.
That's why you stopped it?
No, that's why I started.
Oh, started.
Yeah,
okay,
that's where I started. So I want to just explore corporate a little bit more, gain more experience, expand my scope.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, if that doesn't work out, then I'll look at opening up my own practice. But I think at this point, I've managed to mentor and coach people unofficially. And I'm looking forward to doing it more formally as well going forward, just to be able to touch more lives.
Okay. So it's all about impact with you.
Yeah, I think growing up in a small town, it was always about impact. It was what could we do for someone else? And that has never left me.
That's never left you, nah? You still carry that with you. Beautiful. I want us to get more into your career, right? You said now you're in strategy, audit, and risk. Is that something that's exclusive to people that have studied the CA route? How else if someone is looking at you and saying, I want to do that, that sounds interesting, what do they need to do?
So many CAs, and I'm not stereotyping, many of my friends who are CAs are in your financial manager role, your CFO, and, following that route.
That's true.
I knew that I didn't want to be in that route. I don't hide from it. When people phone me and say, I've got an incredible CFO job, I'm like, that's not for me.
Okay.
And I think it took me many years to get to the point that I know what I'm good at. I know what I love doing. And being able to transform businesses and, help businesses to be the best versions of themselves is what brings me the most joy. And the more businesses I can touch, the more people I can touch on my journey here on earth, that is fulfillment and that is contentment for me.
That's beautiful. So you don't see yourself being a CFO somewhere, not now or not ever.
It's just never appealed to me, the type of work. I think that is important for us to also understand. As a CA, you could go into different types of work: internal audit, external audit, your FM, CFO roles. There's risk, there's audit.
I've seen some
risk
CAs
management.
in marketing.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay.
I've seen some CAs in marketing. I've seen some CAs that work in like a strategy sort of role. I've seen some CAs that work in administration, like a corporate services type of environment.
Right.
Yeah.
I've seen CAs now that are moving into the DEI space, the diversity, inclusion, equity space. And I think that's phenomenal. I think we all need to, somewhere in our minds, start to move towards those spaces, irrespective of what we're studying.
No, you're right. And I think there's a big shift. I think even if you look at banking as an industry, bankers are getting in a lot of engineers. A lot of engineers are coming into banking.
Process engineers.
Yes. Not even just process engineers. Chemical engineers.
Wow.
Remember the CEO of MTN Group, Ralph Mupita?
Yes.
I think he started as a chemical engineer.
Oh, wow.
And then he's a CFO. And then now he's a CEO. It was like such a unusual sort of stream. And I think it highlights what a lot of guests that come onto the podcast talk about. They, in their university days, when they're plotting out their career, thinking how it's going to look like, a lot of them thought, okay, I'm studying marketing, so I'll be a marketing intern, marketing specialist, marketing manager, marketing executive, and I'll end up as a CMO somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Same with accountants, same with IT people. But they've found in the real world that they start out as this, move over to this, find their way back to this somehow, and sort of, move around like that. And I think you're also an example of that, because you started in audit, left and went into management consulting and came back to audit, but with a bit more of a strategy sort of thing. Yeah.
Look, I think our purpose finds us along the way. And it will never be just one path.
Yeah.
So we need to be open to what, God or the universe is showing us. I don't believe that any experience you have, even the worst experiences that you have, are for nothing. I don't believe they're random. I believe that they are pushing us towards our highest purpose.
It doesn't feel like it in the moment, though.
In the moment, I have to agree, guys. 2023 has not been one of my best years. In the moment, you feel like the world is against you. But I do know from some of my other experiences that you can only look back and realize why certain things had to happen. It doesn't happen randomly. It doesn't happen because someone hates you. It's often just meant for your highest good.
Okay. That's interesting. And I think it highlights what another guest has said, to say, a lot of times the difference between the people that succeed or sort of try and turn things around is because they're able to shift their perspective, right? Something that looks like a failure could be interpreted as a challenge, for instance, as an example. So instead of thinking of it as I failed in this, it could be like I was doing an assessment, a temperature check, and now I found out that there's a development area that I need to focus on this one area. So it's a matter of perspective and a matter of framing it, I think. Right?
Absolutely. I think it's always about perspective and mindset. But let's not also overlook when we go through really challenging situations. Let's acknowledge that what has happened is not great.
Yes.
Let's heal from it and then let's move over. Because the one thing that I really don't like is this world of toxic positivity where the worst things happen and you must say, oh no, I'm so happy. I can't subscribe to that kind of way of living. It's important to acknowledge when you've been through something traumatic.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. We usually end our podcast with something that sort of aligns to that, but we'll get into it a bit later. Going back into your current role, right? What is the biggest headache in your current role? What keeps you up at night? You're like, if I could snap this thing away, my life would be 10 times better. What is that thing for you?
So I'm a little bit of an overthinker, and I wish I could. That's something that I need to
That's a
work on.
developed
I need
personal-
to work
okay.
on that. But yeah, I think when you live from a place of integrity, nothing keeps you up at night.
Okay. Okay, you're gonna have to go into a bit more detail about what exactly you mean.
When you
by
you know,
that.
you speak your truth, you live your truth.
Yeah.
You are one and the same person. You're not putting on an act or
Yeah.
a mask or whatever. You will sleep well at night because your soul feels aligned with what